Welcome to the API Academy video series. In this video, the API 360 model, you'll learn how to dive deeper into your API program to use your APIs at scale. If you want to start taking advantage of APIs on a scale of more than just one single API, your first focus should be on business strategy and aligning your APIs with your business goals. You should make sure that the APIs are useful to your target audience. Next are the business tactics, where you should focus on engaging target developers. Think about the architecture, scalability, and evolvability as well. An organization's ability to be agile and address the constant change of the digital economy will determine which API programs are successful and which are not over time. Last but not least, there is an operational category of manageability, security, and sustainability. Make sure that you have the right API management in place so you can understand what is happening with your APIs. In the API Academy, we have synthesized the information we have observed across the companies we've worked with and analyzed, and came up with a practical model that identifies the key areas that need to be addressed in order to be successful with and through APIs. This model is intended to work for any organization, but has particular appeal for established enterprises looking for the right way to get started with APIs. Now let's take a closer look at each of these categories. Although all of these categories can bring immediate value to a company starting out with APIs, none is more vital than alignment and usefulness. To ensure the necessary balance between strategic alignment with your enterprise business strategy and maximum usefulness to users, here are some key questions you should ask. What are my business goals, and how can APIs help me achieve them? Do I have funded projects that could benefit from APIs? How do I ensure that the APIs I introduce enable future value, both internally and for end users? What are the unmet needs in my industry that could be solved using APIs? Who are the disruptors in my industry, and how are they using APIs? What business model does my API enable or extend? As with any initiative, it's important to establish measurable goals by which you can evaluate success. When it comes to achieving optimal API alignment and usefulness, the following deliverables are key. Consider your roadmap and how delivered APIs will be consumed by upcoming projects. What is the path to success for each API project you initiate? Who are the stakeholders and what roles do they play? You might also want to decide what the success of your API program should look like. Last but not least, you can take advantage of the API Academy. The next category to examine is engagement and usability. One of the fundamental aspects that sets the web API paradigm apart from others is how much emphasis is placed on the API consumer. Specifically, successful API providers have catered to the developers of the client applications that use the APIs. This recognition of the app developer as a key stakeholder is critical. For your enterprise API strategy to succeed, you need partners to integrate your APIs into their own applications and solutions. Instead of waiting for developers to seek you out, you must identify and engage developers you believe can contribute to your success. Successfully driving adoption of your APIs requires aggressive marketing. And in a fast-paced, highly competitive app economy, first to market often wins the day. So to that end, it's worth considering a program of incentives for early adopters of your APIs. And this aggressive marketing is relevant whether your audience is internal or external. Your marketing efforts also need to emphasize how easy your APIs are to use. The number of developers who have already registered with your API program and the level of activity your APIs are driving in the developer community can serve as valuable endorsements. To advance the conversation with developers in a way that increases the chances of them adopting your APIs, there are some important questions you need to answer. Who are the intended and expected consumers of my APIs? Who are the developers who will attract clients to my APIs? How do I attract and retain the right consumers and developers? How do I factor my API consumer needs into my API design? How do I continually enhance the developer experience for my API? And what tools does my developer community need to help them use my API? Among the key deliverables to achieve optimal API developer engagement and usability are a developer program that will help you systematically identify and target developers who are the right fit. With well-thought-out API and DX design principles, you'll be able to prioritize a few essential principles and defend them. API consumer toolkits create a resource that includes documentation, software development kits, samples, and more to help streamline developer onboarding. And lastly, developing hands-on education programs for applied instruction can help developers quickly master your APIs. Once you have the business strategy and developer management covered, you are well on your way to getting a good start with your API program. But good starts are fleeting. To build momentum and to be able to handle it, you need to ensure that your APIs are scalable and evolvable. To ensure scalability and evolvability of your APIs, your enterprise architecture should be designed with future-proofing in mind. Enterprise architecture should anticipate future changes to the business, synthesize multiple perspectives from API stakeholders, and impose appropriate constraints. Enterprise architecture should not obsess over standardization, care exclusively about technology, or favor models over reality. To accurately evaluate your organization's preparedness to scale and evolve your APIs as needed to meet changing market requirements, you'll have to be able to answer the following questions. What factors will affect the design time scalability of my APIs? What about runtime? How should I version my APIs? What are the technology trends I need to consider for my APIs? What are the organizational constraints that will affect my success? How can I leverage my existing assets for APIs? For scalability and evolvability of your APIs, consider the following key deliverables. You need to find API architecture guidelines, but avoid overly rigid standards that might stifle innovation and drive developers away. Handling the full lifecycle of your APIs, such as the creation, testing, security, deployment, and management parts of it, is essential. Effective API strategy goes hand in hand with continuous delivery methodologies and DevOps culture. Plan around the fact that today's systems are almost certain to be obsolete within 3 years. Provide internal staff and your partners opportunities to build skills in real-world environments. Finally, we come to the fourth set of considerations, and they're equally foundational to the other three: manageability and security of your API program. While well-defined digital initiatives are essential to the growth of your enterprise, opening the door to outsiders carries significant risk. It's important to maintain control over how your APIs are being deployed to avoid finding yourself in a situation that doesn't serve your best interests. Therefore, your API should be designed so their activity is easy to track and manage. Likewise, your APIs must limit user access to your organization's data to what's absolutely necessary, and make sure all users with access are appropriately authenticated. Are you taking the right precautions with your API strategy? Consider the following questions. What operational metrics do I need for my APIs? What business metrics do I need for my APIs? How can I use these metrics to increase business agility? How can I control access to my APIs without putting up new barriers? Who are the principals involved in my APIs, and how can I protect privacy? What API-related threats do I need to protect against? These are undeniably big questions for the manageability and security of your API program, but they're also the ones that can be most effectively addressed by technology. The potential business benefits of APIs are highly attractive, but you can't chase those benefits at the expense of accountability and security. Before offering your APIs to outside developers, it is essential that you clearly define and implement the following policies and capabilities: API analytics and monitoring, API identity and security model, API infrastructure and operations, and an API management platform. Manageability and security of APIs is the area best addressed by an API management solution. To learn more, please take advantage of the contacts and resources listed on this slide. You've reached the end of the API 360 video. You should now be able to understand how to take advantage of APIs at scale, define key focus areas for API success, and describe the API 360 model. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in other installments of the API Academy Learning Series.